Good evening, world. How are you doing? This is Road to Liberty podcast. I was your once and future host, Mr. Token, and that is my main man over there, Mr. Dustin Hobbs. How are you doing, my man?
Oh, not too bad. It's just enjoying the salt mines.
There's a lot of salt going down. You got some big changes going on in your life here coming up pretty soon. Exciting stuff.
Right, and how fitting that the big event in my life coming up, the birth of my second child, my first daughter, will be Monday at 7 a.m. is when we go in for the inducement.
That is so exciting. I still remember when both my kids were born. And I was the same order you had. I had a son first and then a daughter, right? And
Yep.
both times, I'll tell you this, for me at least, getting used to the second one was very interesting because from the first one, I thought I knew what I was doing, right? So I already have one. I know what I'm doing. I did this already. And then she came along, and her personality and attitude is just 100% different from my first, right?
Right.
So it caught me completely off guard, and since I thought I knew what I was doing already, it kind of threw me for a trip, you know? Because like my first was very people-oriented. Right? He was a people pleaser. He would always try to do what would make us happy because that's his personality, right? We tell him not to do something, he'd normally do it, right?
Yeah.
The second one didn't like that at all. She's a wild child. She didn't give a shit what you tell her to do, right? You tell her not to do something, she's the kind of person she'll look at you, go, heh, and then she'll run off and do that thing.
Yeah, I have a sneaking suspicion that's exactly what's going to happen here. The first one, he's taking a bath right now. When he was still a fetus in there, he was very lazy. He didn't do anything. He was very mellow. He barely kicked, barely made any type of movement or anything like that. And now that he's born, he's 18 months old. He's a little bit of a shit. Like you tell him not to do something. He'll smile at you and then he'll do it. But at the same time, like if you grab something that he's not supposed to grab and you sternly say, like, put that back, he'll look at you for a second and he'll go and he'll put it back where he found it and then he'll clap for himself that he did the right thing. And he also loves to wave at people. We go to the grocery store or whatever, every single person he sees, if he makes eye contact with them, he'll wave at him, and people usually love it. Old people love him. Now,
yeah,
the other one is she, like I said earlier, she'll be coming out Monday morning is when the inducement's going to be, and she has given Angela hell, like for the past 3 months. It's somersaults and kicks and punches and shadow boxing and just movement all over the place. So I have a feeling she's going to be a bit of a handful.
See, my wife always talks about how much she loved being pregnant. Like, she loved it, right? She's like, oh, it's so magical carrying a baby around in me. And like, don't you wish you could experience that? I'm like, nope, not at all. Not even a little bit. You know, I'm glad that you have that. I'm glad you feel that way. Good for you, right? But no, I don't. I would rather not go through any of that.
Yes.
I mean,
unfortunately, the big story now is that you're not alone in that sentiment, apparently, and a lot of people are upset that. Well, why don't you just?
Well, first of all, I'd like to clarify. Now that men can be pregnant, I've got to worry about that now. See, when I was growing up, men couldn't be pregnant, so I didn't have anything to worry about. But nowadays, who knows, right? All of a sudden, I'll start getting that baby bump, like, oh no, there's a baby in me.
Yep.
But there is some big news. There is some big news. The geysers have erupted. The salt is flowing from the heavens. Something big has come down the line, and I'm just going to say it right here. Probably the biggest victory for liberty of my entire lifetime. Probably.
I don't think so.
Yeah, well, they're wrong. They're wrong, and I don't mind saying that, and I'll explain why I think they're wrong. But yes, it has been leaked from the offices of the Supreme Court that Roe v. Wade, the law of the land, for decades, half a century, I am told, over and over and over again, super precedent it has been for a very long time that Roe v. Wade, right, the case that forced every state in these United States to legalize abortion is going to be overturned by a 5-4 vote spearheaded by the Trump appointments to the Supreme Court.
Samuel Alito is the one who wrote the majority decision.
Yes, but all of the Trump appointees joined in the majority.
Right. Now, do you mind if I play something over my phone here?
Oh, go ahead.
Because we didn't have this as an intro, and I was a little bit disappointed. This was kind of a last minute thing, but here we go.
I love it.
That's right.
Hoes. You say here's the thing, though. Hoes have been so perpetually mad for so long that I think they're getting tired. Right? Because, I mean, yes, hoes be mad. That is a fact. But are they as mad as they were in 2020? Are they as mad as they were in 2016? I honestly think that a lot of these hoes are just... Oh, shit. There I am. I honestly think that a lot of these people are just burnt out because it's been non-stop anger for years now. Yeah, and after all that, you don't got any outrage left in the bank. And especially in the last few months, the woke left has been taking L after L after L. And my God, for years I've been wondering, when is the backlash to wokeism going to come? And I think mid-2022, that backlash is in full swing, and this is just a new crescendo of that. Right,
yeah. So I don't know if I'd call what's happening a backlash to it. So because it's kind of hard to put into words, because a lot of what's been going on has with like the street soldiers that the left have been putting out, and the pushing and the shoving in your face, and things like the Ministry of Truth, basically being put in there. The announcement that it got walked back a little bit, but the announcement about how they wanted to tax like $600 over like Venmo and PayPal and stuff. They wanted that to be declared on your IRS. My mom actually sent me a text message yesterday saying that they are spinning up a Department of Environmental Justice, whatever the fuck that is supposed to be. And to me, it just seems like they're pushing all of this odious stuff in our faces in order to provoke some kind of a backlash, some type of violence that they can point to and be like, aha, you see that these people are evil and they need to be stomped down in perpetuity. But instead, there's been just kind of like this slow simmer. And while the Roe v. Wade being repealed would definitely be something of not necessarily a backlash, but a win for the political right, at the same time, it's also something that's going to mobilize the weirdos to burn things down again. Now, nothing's set in stone yet. This was the leak, and I'll get to that my thoughts on that in a second. But it's also indicative of how the political right views politics. The left they will use the apparatus of the state to get whatever they want, however they can. They will bend the rules, they will break the rules if nobody calls them on it, to get whatever they want to get. And when they don't get their way, they melt down, they burn down cities, they flip over police cars, they kill people.
They protest outside the homes of Supreme Court justices.
Exactly. And on the flip side of that, the political right, they seem to bide their time until politically they can get something like this Roe v. Wade decision, and they can get it locked down so airtight that it will never be challenged again. And in a way, that is the better way. It is how our system is supposed to be done. But at the same time, it's so infuriatingly slow and so cucked, for lack of a better term. They have no action bone in their body. Everything is like, well, we have to work within the system, because the political right. Well, the political right has an admiration for the system, for how things work. And even when the left does something like bend or break the rules in order to get something like an executive power or something like that, where they can just unilaterally, wave a wand and get what they want, when the right gets in power, they're reluctant to use it, because at their core, a lot of the times they're constitutional originalists. Not always, and sometimes they will bend and break the rules. But for the most part, bending, breaking the rules, and then freaking out when they don't get their way is a hallmark of the modern day political left.
Well, I'll give you a little pushback on that, because I think that's starting to change. And one of the big reasons I think that's starting to change is I think Republican figures are starting to find a backbone. Look at DeSantis down in Florida. Now, DeSantis down in Florida, he has a lot of the same rhetorical appeal that Donald Trump does. He's a tough guy. He doesn't back down from a fight with the media. He'll openly call them out. He's not this wishy-washy Mitch McConnell, Mitt Romney type of dude. Right? But at the same time, Trump never had the know-how to actually get anything done. Right? Yeah. He's this big, loud buffoon who might have a lot of the right instincts. Like he had the instinct to want to get out of Syria. But then he tells the generals to do it, and what do? They lie to him about getting troops out, and he never checks up on that. Right? He didn't have the know-how to actually get things done. He could just sort of be lied to and would never figure it out and couldn't correct the problem, and surrounded himself with a bunch of idiots or people that were openly hostile to him. But one thing that he did do for the Republican Party is he showed them that they could have a backbone. He showed Republicans that if they would just grow a goddamn spine, they could get some of the things they wanted done. And that's what DeSantis is doing down in Florida. He's getting a lot of things. I mean, think about the L's the left has been taken. Like this "Don't Say Gabriel" down in Florida. They protest the shit out of that. They got Disney, the Disney Corporation, to come out openly against it. And they still took the L. Right? Yep. They still passed that law, and then other states around the country started passing that law. Then what happened? They went after Disney. They said, oh, you're going to get political on this? You're going to go against the will of the people of this state? Well, fuck you. We're going to take your tax-exempt status. Right? Yep. Now, as a libertarian, you got to have second thoughts about that, like, I like tax-exempt statuses. But on the other hand, this is a company that is openly pushing to get your kids indoctrinated in gender ideology in public schools and keep it a secret from the parents.
Right. Well, it's not even just that either. It's Disney's tax exemption status. I think it was called like the Reedy Creek Development Project or something like that. Their tax exempt status was at the pleasure of the state of Florida.
Right.
And when they open it, and even if the parental rights in education bill or whatever the real name of it was, even if that had absolutely nothing to do with some bonkers left-wing sexual ideology, even if it was completely divorced from all of that, it was just something else entirely. If Disney would have used their corporate power as a massive employer in the state of Florida, as a multimedia juggernaut, if they had used all of their power to simply lobby and protest and speak out against a popular bill in the state of Florida, they don't deserve their tax exempt status anymore, because it was at the pleasure of the state of Florida, and the state, being an extension of the will of the people, sorry.
But these aren't the only L's the left took. The vaccine mandate, L. The Build Back Better plan, L. The mask on airplane thing, failed. Another L. Remember when they were trying to get Joe Rogan taken off of Spotify? L. Joe Rogan's podcast has more subscribers now than it's ever had. Another L. Right?
Yep.
It's L after L after L. They can't get anything done. The only thing they've been able to get done was send billions of dollars to Ukraine. That's the only thing. And that war has turned into a stalemate. Right?
Yep.
If they were looking to flood the country with weapons and drive Russia out, if that was their goal, L on that too. And now this, Roe v. Wade, after taking L after L after L, when going up against Trump's nominees for the Supreme Court, now the culmination of all that has come to this, right? And Joe Biden on the economy, his economic success, L. Right?
Yep.
Joe Biden pushing telling parents that they need to affirm their children by giving their children gender reaffirming surgeries. That's an L with the people. Right?
Yep.
His immigration policies, L. L, 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 one after another. Right? The left in this country is starting to rack up losses like we used to see the right take up. Right? Now, the left for a very long time, they've been able to get their way by screaming, by throwing fits, by rioting, by crying. And as much as Trump was not a good president in my mind, he knew that the way you fight people who use their tears as a weapon is with merciless and relentless mockery. And that is how you fight these guys now, because you mock them and you let them know their tears don't mean a goddamn thing to you. They have no actual power. And their big defender in Washington, Joe Biden, can't think. He can't talk. He can't keep his bowel movements under control. This is a man who cannot be the champion that the left needs him to be. And the second in command is Kamala Harris, who is even worse than he is. Right?
Yep.
So let's get to this Roe v. Wade thing, because this is I forgot to mention another L. Elon Musk buying Twitter. Another L.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, so like you said, let's talk about the Supreme Court decision. So even the darling justice of the left, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, admitted
the patron saint of the unborn.
Yeah, even she admitted towards the end of her career, or maybe even sooner than that, that the legal justification that the majority decision in the Roe v. Wade case was bad case law, and people left need to start calling themselves the L left. Take that L on the reg now. Exactly right. You are correct, sir. But so anyways, like I was saying, Ruth Bader Ginsburg argued that the case law used to justify the Roe v. Wade decision was bad case law. And for people who are unaware with the majority decision, I'm only familiar with it in passing, but for everybody who's unfamiliar with it, it was a very, very tortured reading of the 4th and 14th Amendment. And I actually think that is a legal term, is a tortured reading, which means that when they did it, they had to stretch the definitions and the original intent of these two amendments to the Constitution to their breaking point in order to come to the decision that they did. Now, it was justified under 4th Amendment grounds, in that apparently an abortion is something that is subject to a person's right to privacy. And they used the 14th Amendment's Equal Protections Clause, meaning that a state government could not violate a woman's abortion ability to get an abortion, because the Equal Protections Clause, the 14th Amendment, extended the Fourth Amendment protection to privacy to state governments. Now, I'm not 100% sure how the justification of an abortion falling under privacy is. I don't see how they came to that decision, because if you are committing a crime, but you're doing it in secret and you get charged for it, does that violate your right to privacy? Like, if I'm robbing a house, but I'm doing it in secret, no, you can't investigate me because that violates my right to privacy. Of course not.
No, and calling it a tortured decision is perfectly descriptive, because they put it on the rack, stretched it out, and forced it to say what they wanted it to say. That's what Roe v. Wade is. And even its most ardent defenders will never defend it on actual constitutional grounds. The deepest they'll go on the legal grounds will say, well, the Supreme Court based it on this amendment and that amendment. But you'll never hear an actual constitutional analysis on why that was the right decision, because there is none.
Right.
There is no legal basis under which you can say that the writers of the Constitution were intending for abortion to be made legal nationwide. That is not a thing. As a matter of fact, when the 14th Amendment was written, abortion was illegal all across the United States. Right? It was not a legal institution. Right? And once science got to the point where they realized that a fetus is alive before the, quote, quickening, when you start feeling the movements of the child, these states adjusted their abortion laws to reflect that by making them more strict, not less. So all the way up until Roe v. Wade, almost all states in the U.S. had heavy restrictions on abortion, if not outright banning them. And it had been that way for centuries. So to say that there's any historical precedent for the right to an abortion is patently absurd. There's no basis for it whatsoever.
Right. So the other thing that makes the Roe v. Wade case very shaky is, so let's say, for instance,
Hi.
oh, yeah.
Give me a kiss.
Hi, baby.
Mwah. Good night, guys. Oh,
Sorry.
So,
She was screaming for her dad.
Hi.
Okay, come on.
hi.
Good night, night.
Sorry. Come on, baby girl.
See?
Baby wanted a good night kiss.
Yeah, kids are awesome.
They are.
But anyways, like I was saying, the other thing that makes the whole Roe v. Wade decision shaky at best is the fact that the entire case was founded on a lie. And that is what a lot of people don't understand about the whole case, is that the reason the woman Roe, or Jane Roe in the case, the reason that she was seeking out an abortion was because she claimed that she was gang raped at a party and became pregnant as a result.
Oh, this sounds familiar.
And come to find out, later on in her life, she wrote a book about how the whole thing was a lie. And then a little bit after she wrote the book, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Luke, I like how you keep referring to them as garden implements. That is fantastic.
Yep, the gardening implements are indeed perturbed. But anyways, she wrote a book, and then a few years after she wrote a book, she became kind of a born-again Christian. And in several news interviews, she said that she cheated people out of money. She was a drug addict. She dealt drugs. She was an abusive alcoholic. But probably her, the biggest regret that she has of her life was being the plaintiff in that case. And it wasn't even the fact that she had an abortion herself because the baby that was in her while they were litigating this case was born
Oh, I
before
didn't
the
know that
case.
part.
Yes. Yes, that
So
baby was born.
she was pregnant with this baby she was fighting to abort during the case.
Yeah.
And gave birth to it.
Yes.
Well,
She had
that child
the child.
that child must feel like he dodged the biggest bullet in history.
Yeah, I can imagine so. But now here's the thing. After the fact, this Supreme Court case comes down. It's all based on her wanting to get an abortion and being denied because she claims she was gang raped. Years after the fact, she recants her statements, says that she was never raped at all. Doesn't that torpedo the case?
No, because I would imagine if it was a criminal case, but they were setting constitutional precedent. So does it really matter if she was actually gang raped or not? I mean, she committed perjury for sure. But in regards to constitutional precedent, I mean, that's the thing about it. It was a terrible decision in the first place. Does this actually make it more terrible? I mean, yeah, sure. But considering how tortured this whole thing was to begin with, it's just another piece of shit on top of a giant pile.
Right. So it's very I don't know. It's very hard to determine exactly where this needs to go from here because, like I said, a lot of people are unaware of the fact that that baby was born. The rape story was a lie, and people they're trying to conflate this with some type of a human, or not a human rights, but a women's rights issue versus a child's life right.
But what's a woman?
We don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea.
It's a birthing person.
We've all collectively forgotten what a woman is, so I guess we'll never know anymore.
Right.
All the books from all the biology books from the 90s have been burned.
Right. So let's go back and talk about, like, this is more than a victory for the unborn children. It's more than a victory for liberty, as you laid out a little bit ago. This is also a victory for the separation of powers and the rightful role that our government branches play in the interplay of the executive, legislative, and judicial branch. And I say that because what the Supreme Court necessarily did in Roe v. Wade was not only set a precedent for abortion rights, but in a lot of ways, this being one of the biggest and most visible cases in modern U.S. history, they set not a precedent, but they set the idea loose in people's mind that this is the sort of thing that the Supreme Court is used for.
Right.
Using litigation to essentially invent rights out of whole cloth, using the rights set forth in amendments as the stepping stone to it. Like, dude, everything I'm hearing is they're taking away a woman's constitutional right to an abortion. No, they're not. No, it doesn't. Not only that, not only does the Constitution not say anything about abortion at all, it's the rightness. It never existed. They're not taking away your right to your constitutional right to an abortion, because there was no constitutional right to an abortion. There was a constitutional right to privacy, and they use that privacy as an extension in order to say that the abortion was, in a lot of ways the same as like medical privacy. You're not allowed, because it is a medical procedure.
Even the privacy is an implied right. It's not stated in black and white in the Constitution. You kind of read it from the fact that you have a right to be secure in your papers and effects, right? People interpret that as privacy. But privacy, it's implied, but it's not in black and white. Now, abortion is implied from an implication, right? So you got 2 degrees of separation from reality to
Right.
get to abortion.
It's an implication via starring in Footloose with Kevin Bacon. You know, we're at 6 degrees from separation here.
And see, you're right. You're absolutely right, because Roe v. Wade was a usurpation of the political power of states. That's what it was, because state governments had been deciding this issue since the birth of the country. Before the birth of the country, there were laws on abortion, while the United States were British colonies. Right?
I think that the earliest record, I saw it on a video the other day, the earliest record that anybody has of any kind of law pertaining to abortion is in not worldwide, but in the English common law tradition, is back in the 1300s. So, you know, all these people like arguing and bitching about precedent, you know,
Roe v. Wade overturned centuries of precedent. And don't sit here and be like, oh, you can't overturn precedent. You don't believe that. You don't believe that every case overturning a previous case was wrong. You don't believe that. And I know you don't believe that. Right? Because if you were honest, if you would actually come out and say that, there's a lot of cases that you would have to go back on that you would shudder in horror.
Yeah.
Right? So don't give me that crap. Right. But yes, you're absolutely right. The Supreme Court in this case essentially said the Supreme Court does not get to decide the issue of abortion. And that's correct. It's 100% correct. So all these people saying this is an attack on democracy, that has got to be the dumbest take I've heard from this. Like, as though Supreme Court justices who are chosen by the president are more representative of the voters than your state legislatures. Right? Yeah. You don't vote for Supreme Court justices. You vote for the president, who then picks the guy that the Senate then confirms. Right? You got several degrees of separation from the voter, and that's per design. However, political decisions like this were always meant to be handled by the closest representative to the people. That's your state legislature. You know, as far as state governments go, that your state legislature, your state legislature is the closest representative to this to your state government that you have. They're closer to you than your congressman, than your senator, and certainly closer than the president. And that's where these decisions were supposed to be made, and that's what the Supreme Court says.
Yeah, exactly. There's the argument that people, or not the argument, but the freak out that's going on right now in the press and on social media and everything is like, overturning Roe v. Wade means abortions are now illegal. No.
God, if only.
The Roe v. Wade decision, the only thing that it did was say that the federal government was in charge of regulating it, if anything at all, and state governments were forbidden. All this is doing is saying that, you know, if you live in some auto-genocidal hellhole like California or something, if you think California,
they'll actually pay for you to fly out there and murder your children. So that's exciting. Right now, there's 2 reasons to go to California. Take the children you want to Disney World, to Disneyland, and take the children you don't want to get murdered in an abortion center.
Right. Yeah, I'd only consider a vacation to California as a life lesson to my kids and be like me. Don't. Yeah, this could be you if you listen to the people in the public schools these days. But yeah, it's
you see that homeless man taking a poop on the sidewalk? You don't want to be that guy.
Yeah. Speaking of the just as a little bit of a segue off topic, but the poop sidewalk poop cleaners in San Francisco, they were paying their people some ridiculous amount of money. It was like $145,000 a year to be one of the poop patrols for human feces in the city of San Francisco.
I mean, that's probably just enough to buy a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, shitty ass apartment in San Francisco.
Well, a lot of people were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe the city government is paying $145,000 for basically a street sweeper." And then after a little bit of digging, you realize that the reason they were offering that salary so high was because they were having trouble retaining employees. And the reason they were having trouble retaining employees.
Can I guess?
Go ahead.
The homeless were attacking them?
No. They were being overworked. So imagine you fill out a job application for this job of a shit cleaner, human shit cleaner, and you go to work, and after a while you go to your boss and be like, "Listen, man, what you're paying me just ain't worth it. There's so much poop out there. There's so much poop." Having PTSD flashbacks to Vietnam, only with human feces on the sidewalk or whatever. Imagine a city.
There's so much poop. Why is there so much poop?
Exactly. A city has such a problem with human feces on the sidewalk that they need to pay 3 times what I make in a year making things because people don't want to. People they've got too much work to do. It's unreal.
There's too much. Actually, I was thinking like the homeless people were trying to stab them with their dirty needles, but no, this is even funnier.
Yes. So that's what's going on in San Francisco, one of the formerly most beautiful cities in the United States.
Now, all the small businesses in California are being shut down because people can just steal their shit, right? Yep. So that's putting small business out already on top of the COVID and economic woes we've had for the past 2 years. Now they're shutting down because robbers can just take their shit, and now all those buildings are going to be turned into impromptu abortion centers for all the abortion tourists going to California.
Yep.
Absolutely ridiculous. So let's talk a little about abortion itself. Because years ago when we started this podcast, I was very hesitant to come out and just be openly and unapologetically pro-life, because I know the backlash pro-life libertarians get from the autistic wing of the Libertarian Party. Right? They'll bring out the LP platform and say, "Hey, look, the LP says the government has no role to play in this." I'm like, that's a contradiction. That's a contradiction in itself. That whole platform the LP puts out there, it contradicts itself and the Dallas Accords. Right? So don't even talk to me about that. Okay, let me explain why it's a contradiction. The platform says that there are good faith arguments on both sides. And I can agree with that. I can agree that there can be good faith pro-choice libertarians. I acknowledge that fully. But you therefore have to acknowledge that there are good faith pro-life libertarian arguments. Now, what is the pro-life libertarian argument? The pro-life libertarian argument is that a fetus is alive at the point of conception. That is a fact. Human life begins at conception. If you deny that, you are denying science. Lefties, take note. Point number 2, that life is human. It's not a giraffe. It's not a dolphin. It's not an insect. It is human. It is a living human being, right? That's points 1 and 2. Point number 3, human beings have rights by virtue of being human beings.
Right.
Point 3, therefore, the unborn children growing inside your body has rights. And the most fundamental right of all is the right to life. That is the pro-life libertarian argument. You can disagree with it all you want, but that's the argument. Now, if you understand that premise, then you therefore need to understand that a pro-life libertarian, such as myself, considers abortion to be an act of murder. Right? It is murder. That is what the pro-life libertarians believe. That is the good faith argument of the pro-lifers, which the LP platform acknowledges is valid. Right? Mm-hmm. Now, the LP platform would then ask a pro-life libertarian to be okay with legalized murder. Now, they would never ask this of any other people group. If killing Jews was legal, the LP would never go, well, there's good faith arguments on both sides. I guess we just need to keep the government out of it. No, we wouldn't say that. If killing gay people was legal, the LP wouldn't come out and say, you get the government out of it. The LP would never say, you know what, the government should really stay out of the issue of slavery. This is a complete government overreach. I mean, we don't believe in big government, so why should big government keep people from enslaving one another? Well, there's good faith arguments on both sides of pedophilia, so let's keep the government. Some libertarians would actually probably be okay with that. But you see what I'm saying here. If the pro-life argument is valid under the banner of libertarianism, and the Libertarian Party acknowledges that minarchists are welcome and valid in the LP, then it is perfectly valid for a pro-life libertarian who is also a minarchist to advocate for the act of abortion, which we consider to be murder, to be illegal. That is perfectly valid under libertarianism and the very principles of the Libertarian Party. So if you want to wave the LP platform in my face as if it's some kind of irrefutable gospel, you autistic retards, don't. Because you're just making yourselves look stupid. Don't come. If you want to argue with me about the validity of abortion, we can have that argument. But you can't wave a piece of LP platform in my face and expect me to go, oh, well, the LP said that. I guess all my morals and values have to be thrown out the window because some autistic libertarians wrote a thing on paper. Like, no, fuck you. That's not how that works.
Right. Well, all of the notifications that I've been getting on my phone for the past 3 days.
You're welcome.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, follow us on Instagram, by the way.
Jesus. Yeah, if anybody thinks that what Nathan just said there is 100% true, go over to our Instagram page and please argue with the one guy who will not shut up.
I will not interact with him anymore. He's already shown to me to be a person of bad faith and a complete scumbag. He's the kind of person that supports abortion because he wants to pressure the women he sleeps with to kill their kids. He's one of those bro-choicers that who wants abortion as a means to evade responsibility.
Yeah. Over here, there's Mark D. This is actually one of the best things that I think the Libertarian Party is the party of responsibility, allegedly. But yeah, it's. It's like you were talking about the bro choicer over there. I just call him evil. But
yeah, bro. The kind of guy that wants abortion to remain legal so that he can use women as sex objects, and then what's the word I'm using for? Urge them to murder his children. So he can avoid the responsibility of caring for them because he thinks their children are gross. You're evil. You're an evil human being. You are a bad person. And I don't give a fuck about you. I'm not going to engage with that shit anymore. I called him evil. I called him a scumbag. And that's it. There's nothing else to say. That's it. Sorry.
Yeah, he might also just be using the shittiest arguments imaginable in order to just...
Could be.
Get his dopamine hits.
Well, he found the page through my trolling of leftist pages, so he's one of those guys. He doesn't claim to be a libertarian, but yes, that my position, and I've decided because I back in the day when I was kind of waffling on the abortion issue, I realized that if I really believe that abortion is murder, I cannot be a coward on this issue. I cannot sit here and fail to speak up on the issue simply because I fear the backlash and the reading from autistic libertarians who refuse to come to grips with the pro-life argument. Look, guys, look, I don't. All those people that are evictionists, get out. Evictionism is the most evil pro-choice argument. The only pro-choice argument worth engaging is the argument that the unborn are not yet living human beings, because at least that's an understandable position. If your position is that it doesn't matter if they're human beings with rights, that you can just kill them because it's your property, you're a bad person. Please consider the implications of that argument before using it, right? Really think about what you're justifying there. But if you're going to say it's not a human being and it's just a clump of cells, okay, at least from your point of view, you're not evil, right? At least from your point of view, your main priority here is protecting the liberty of women. And I can understand that. I can understand that completely. But then you have the problem of determining when a child gains its rights. It's illogical to set it at birth, because there's no difference between a child 5 minutes before birth and 5 minutes afterwards, right? And you you get these weird situations, like what if they're twins, right? And one child is born and the other one's still in there. They're the same exact thing, but the child inside, still in the womb, doesn't have any rights yet, but the child that just came out has rights. That doesn't make any sense, right? To me, and you can argue with this with me if you want to, that's fine. But to me, the only logical point that isn't arbitrary to set this is conception, because that's when the two entities, the egg and the sperm, come together and combine their DNA to form a new thing. And that new thing is human. And that's when it comes alive. That is the point where it begins to grow and develop and starts to mature. So you can argue with me about that. You can argue with me all you want, but that's where I believe human life begins. And if you end that human life at that point, that is an act of murder. And as a libertarian who believes in the right to life, and as a minarchist who believes that government does have the duty to protect human rights, I believe that government has the duty to make abortion illegal.
Right. The best thing what you just said there is the argument that you need to decide when life happens. And you are right. You know, it's either birth or it's conception, because the developmental phases, you know, back and forth, vary from person to person.
Yeah, and it's arbitrary to set it at any point. Even birth is completely arbitrary, because, like I said, there's no difference between a baby 5 minutes before and 5 minutes after. So if you're just going to set it at an arbitrary point in development, well, then you can justify abortion anytime from conception to 20-some years old, because until you're in your 20s, you're still developing mentally. Your brain hasn't fully developed yet.
Yeah, it's unreal, and unfortunately, this is such a lightning rod issue that you can spout facts and knowledge until people's faces melt off. But there's, you know, they're set in their opinion on this, and no amount of jockeying one way or the other is going to change that for a lot of people. You know, there's pro-lifers out there that you could have the most eloquent person ever do the argument that you just said about you know, the science behind it, and whether or not a fetus in the womb is a person with rights, and that pro-life person will almost never change their mind, because it's like, yeah, well, you make a compelling argument, but something about it just feels like killing babies. And then on the other side of it, you can have a pro-choice person that you could make as full-throated an argument as you just did about the personhood of a fetus at conception, and they could just be like, yeah, well, you know, you make a good point, but it still feels like violating a woman's rights.
Well, see, that's the thing about abortion, is that the issue doesn't seem as immediate as other issues would, right? Like if we're talking about Nazi Germany murdering people, that's immediate. You see it happening, right? If you're talking about the history of slavery, that's an immediate thing. You see that, right? And you can see the injustice. But abortion is more like Henry Hazlitt's economics and one economic lesson, the law of the unknown, right? It is unseen and unknown, the damage caused by the institution of abortion, right? You can see the damage and know the damage of an adult human being being killed or enslaved. You see that before your very eyes. It is more abstract when you're talking about a fetus in a early stage of development. It doesn't feel like murder. And that's what a lot of people base their opinions on, what it feels like, especially people on the left. They go, it doesn't feel like I'm murdering somebody, so I'm just going to act like I'm not. Right? So I'm just going to decide that it isn't. But here's my thing. This is an issue of immense moral importance, because we are talking about an institution that, if I'm right, is facilitating a genocide of children. Right? If I am correct on this, every one of you pro-choicers out there is facilitating an institution that murders babies. And I feel like the weight of why am I having trouble with words tonight? The burden of evidence lies on you. I feel very strongly about that. That if you're going to argue it's not a person and it's not murder, you need to tell me why. Now, I'll give you an example to make it more clear. Say there was a building, right? And it was rigged with dynamite, and I'm holding the button to blow it up, right? And I'm saying there's people in the building, and you're saying, no, it's probably no people in that building. Shouldn't you err on the side of maybe there's people in that building, and we should make doubly sure that by pushing this button, we aren't killing people? Now, even if you can guarantee that if there are people in that building, you will never find out, shouldn't you still check? Shouldn't you still wait? Shouldn't you still make 100% sure that you're not accidentally murdering someone? Right? And the burden of evidence should be on you to prove that there's no one in there. It shouldn't be on me to prove that there are people in there. It should be on you to show me that there's not. Right? So if you're going to argue the pro-choice position, a lot of times the pro-choice person will put the burden of proof on the pro-lifer. No, it's on you. Because if I'm wrong, then if I'm wrong, then I am violating the rights of women. I am imposing on them a duty to see a pregnancy to full term. And that's bad, right? That's a violation of their liberty if I am wrong. But if you are wrong, you are committing genocide. And that's a lot worse. All right? So let's just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty good place to leave it. I'm having trouble thinking right now too. The whole thing is just, it's pretty gnarly to think about something that to either side is a cut and dried issue. You know, that's the thing that I've noticed. I've got, quite a few people who are pro-choice on my Facebook feed, and listening to them, it's just like, it's all about a woman's rights and why
whatever that is.
Yeah, whatever a woman is, who knows? But then the other side, like you and me, it's like, it's clearly murder. Why are you so reticent to see it? And that is the problem, is that people are just talking past each other, because no matter what side of the argument you fall on, the obviousness of your point of view to you is blinding you from hearing the arguments of the other side. And when you have somebody making an argument that you in your head have told you is based on stupidity, you start to get emotional with everything. You're like, why am I even entertaining this moron with an argument? and then you have tempers flare, and people get in big arguments and fight with each other over something, because to them their side is right, and anybody who doesn't see that their side is right is clearly either operating from bad faith, or is a misogynist, or is any of the other on either side, that the invectives that they hurl at each other.
Right. And I do want to say one more thing, that it really annoys me, this thing that a lot of libertarians do when they point to abortion and say, oh, they're just using this as a distraction. It's like, look, man, I know a lot of people look at our abortion and just throw their hands up in the air and go, this issue's beyond me. It must be a distraction from something else, because nobody could really be taking this as seriously as they are. But that's not true. Abortion is a very serious issue with incredibly important moral implications, right? And I'm going to give a shout out to my mom right now, because she has been a warrior for the pro-life movement her entire adult life. And what a Mother's Day gift for her, to finally, after her entire adult life, seeing what she considers to be a genocide of children. She raised 6 children. She loves children. She loved all of us. She loves all her grandchildren, right? And to live through her entire adult life, seeing this going on, and to finally see it coming to an end on Mother's Day week of all times, must just be the most amazing thing right now. And I'm going to give her all the Mother's Day flowers that she can handle this year, because she deserves it.
Yep. Yeah. It's it's sad. It's my hope one day that in the collective consciousness of this country, we will look back on abortion someday as a moral stain on this country and our species, similar to the institution of slavery. And it's going to be
and the Holocaust.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those things that passing laws and Supreme Court cases and precedent and the yelling and the screaming and all of the other protesting that goes on is never going to be what makes that collective consciousness come around to that point of view, because it's going to have to happen slowly over time, and it's going to have to be by persuasion, because as evil as slavery was, it was seen as just something that happens right up until it wasn't. And then the tide turned, and we went to war with ourselves in order to abolish it. But it was through the persuasive process rather than the legislative process that got enough people to view that as an evil institution. And hopefully someday, through the persuasive process, the collective morality of this country is going to shift, and it's not going to be one group of people pressing their worldview on other people. It's going to be just like, well, yeah, of course it's murder. Of course it is. What are you talking about?
Yeah, these grandiose issues of morality are settled when society as a whole comes together and agrees that what we were doing was wrong. Right? And that's what that you laid it out perfectly, that this issue is akin to the slavery issue. It is akin to any genocide that's ever happened around the world. And hopefully someday the history books will reflect that. All right, that's it for tonight, guys. I was so happy to come back on the show to talk about this vitally important issue. So, yeah, it was a great show. I send lots of pics of your new baby girl when she finally comes on Monday. Congratulations, by the way. Wife giving birth the day after Mother's Day. That's got to be perfect right there. All right, everybody. Remember to like both of our Facebook pages, Roads to Liberty and Roads to Liberty 2.0, and our Instagram, and join our group on MeWe. And hopefully when Musk takes over Twitter, we can get our Twitter back. All right. Good night, everybody. Have a good one.